a lot of you are out there working really hard right now, putting money away, making good investment decisions for the sole purposes of financing your children's college education. But is that even the right thing to do? We're going to talk about that today.
Hi, I'm Brian LaFauci.
I'm Patrick Marino.
And welcome back to The Art of Fatherhood. Today, we are jumping back into college discussion and making, trying to make smart, educated decisions as fathers. And we're discussing whether or not you should open up your checkbook and pay for your kids' education. I feel like there is a ton of pressure on parents today to absorb the craziness that has become the college tuition.
Or what if you have a younger child right now and what's going on is, one of the things that's going on is people are having children later. Mm-hmm. We've come out of these two really big economic challenges, the 2008 crisis and then the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. So you're coming out of areas where financially people might be a little bit worse off coming out of the gate. Maybe they have big loans that they're still paying off into their 30s. Okay, now you're really kind of just getting started with your career. Are you also, and then you're looking up, you've got your 5-year-old 13 years from now. You know, college costs on average right now $80,000 a year. Right. So it's like, okay, well, what are you going to pay? Are you going to have that much money saved up? Number one. And then number two is, even should you? I think like we have already had this discussion, but like there's a past period where that would have been one of the things you put money away for, say 50 years ago.
Yeah, and I think
we that's what I work for. I'm going to put all my money away, and I'm going to pay for my kids' college education. Or, you know, like people still do it, you know. But like, I think it's a reasonable question. Is like, is that even something you should do? Either A, because it puts you behind as a person because of the significant thing. I mean, it's a significant cost, and if you did start later because of the housing crisis or because you had student loans into your 30s, like, is it reasonable for you to do that, or is there better things for you to do with your money?
Right.
You know, I think that's those are the things. And then also, I think from a parenting perspective, are you better off with them making the decision with the full decision? It's like, hey, like, you've got to make this decision and you're going to live with the financial consequences.
So that's I think the question today, right? Is how is your child going to make this decision if the scenario that they think they're going into is one where you're going to absorb it, or the scenario they think they're going into is one where they feel they are going to absorb it or think they're going to absorb it, right? One of the two. And there, you know, you hear a lot of discussion about, well, you know, I want to give my kids a leg up, so, you know, we're going to pay for their college education.
My parents did it. My parents helped me. I'm going to help you.
Yep. And there's a lot of pressure on parents, especially. Let's bring this to like single dad world, right? That's a lot of pressure on single dad world to take on that obligation. Right. Maybe take on that obligation solely. Right. And kind of look to move that thing forward. So question today is, what's right? What's wrong? How do you make that decision? And what are the key components to that decision? And maybe right or wrong is not the right way to look at it. However, for purpose of today's discussion, we can look at it as what's right. Well, you know,
that's what I mean. Right or wrong, I don't think is the right way of looking at it. And I think that the conventional wisdom would have been, if you have the means, you just do it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if that's morally the right thing to do.
Well, what 18-year-old is going to make the smartest decision, knowing that the end result is non-impactful to them financially? Right. And do you almost force the hand, even if you have the financial means of of repayment, does it make sense to maybe create that as like an incentivized thing, like where you to get buy-in? We deal with this in the smallest aspect of education. With I do some business consulting for this company, and we run a business planning course for them. All right, let's break this down to a micro level. And we went back and forth between whether or not we should charge like just a $50 fee for participants to get on the course, or if we should just offer the 10 class course for free because it's funded, right? So and really the fee, we don't need the money to come in for the course. It's already
funded.
But the fee is for the fact that what happens when it's free. And you know the answer to this. Our audience knows the answer to this. Dropout rate jumps up. Non-completion rate jumps up. People will go through the whole thing, and then, sometimes at the end, it's time to present their business plan. They won't show up for the last class because I didn't pay for it. So that now take that small $50 fee and let's magnify that with our kids' decision. I think the question then changes. How important is it that your kids have a financial buy-in in the education decision?
Skin in the game. You want them to have some skin in the game, I think. Even if it's a small amount. I mean, you're going to make your own judgment in terms of how much you want to help, because it could be, but I think that one of the things that we do in our current society, where it's like everyone wants more and more and more and more, they think they want the best, the best, the best, the best, is we don't think through our options enough. And you and I had a discussion in our previous podcast about just like community college. And I'm not even thinking about it financially, but just like not even thinking through all the options. We're just thinking, I have done what I needed to do in the course of my career so that my kid can go anywhere he or she wants. So we're just going to go to, the best school we can get into without thinking through the consequences of like best fit or again, the idea of the kid having skin in the game, right? We're not laying out all the options. The future of work. All the discussions we had in the previous podcast, we haven't thought those things through. We're just thinking, okay, well, I did it. You know what I mean? I worked hard. I made the right investments. I'll be able to retire, and my kids can be able to go wherever they want to go.
So let's assume that's the case. Let's assume for some of our listeners, that's 100% what they're going to do. They're going to fund their kids' education because they can. That's what they want to do. And when we're in the no judgment zone, there's no right or wrong either way. How can you approach that while keeping your skin in the game for your kids?
Right.
Because I think there's a way to do that. I think there's a way to say, yeah, because let's break it down to what the deliverable is. What am I paying for?
Right.
So what am I paying for? You're my son. You're going to go to Harvard.
You're much younger than me, though, so how does that work?
I don't know. You're going to go to Harvard. I want to pay for you to go to Harvard.
You have a Gen X kid now. Jeez.
Yeah, I
Gen
do.
Z.
Thank God.
I'm going to Harvard?
You're going to Harvard. You got
cool.
in. You worked hard. You got in. I want to pay that tuition for you. What is it that I'm paying for?
You're paying for my room and board. You're paying for my future, right? So that I walk out of college with the number one right now degree probably in the United States, one of the number one degrees in the world, without having the burden of debt.
Okay. So you said it at the end, but you didn't say it at the beginning. I didn't agree with what you were starting with. I'm not paying for your room and board. I'm not paying for any of that. I'm paying for a piece of paper.
Right.
That's really what I'm paying for. Everything else is this other stuff that leads to the piece of paper. So
but you and I had the discussion in the previous podcast where it was like you're paying for the experience, to grow up.
Right. But to your point of, I want you to go and have, get this degree. I want it to be the best degree.
Right.
What I'm paying for is the piece of paper at the end. So now let's back that in. I pay for year one, $100,000, no piece of paper. I pay for year two, $100,000, no piece of paper yet. What happens if you drop out? I didn't pay for you to live it live in Boston, Massachusetts for 2 years.
Right.
Right. So how does that same parent literally, I look at this like a contract. I really do. And
well, I mean, just from like my child, Mr. LaFauci,
are we switching
now
roles?
You're my child, right? And you freaking killed it in school, right?
Yep.
But I'm not, I'm just doing okay. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't afford to send you to Harvard. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I probably couldn't afford to send you to any private institution.
Okay.
But you freaking killed it. You are walking away with this amazing academic scholarship.
Yep.
A lot of the academic scholarships are have a contingency. And usually it's like GPA or something like that. It's like you are not going to continue to have this scholarship if you don't maintain a certain level.
Got it.
So like that could be, are you thinking along those lines?
I'm wondering if that's it, or
how we are basically you and I are basically saying we need to build skin in the game.
We need to build 100%. I think
to build a better adult.
Yep. At the end of the day, one of the ways I think to do that is getting your child to sign on the dotted line for some sort of loan to go. And if you complete the degree, I'll pay it off. Right? I'm going to pay for 80% of it up front. 20% is you're going to sign for, whatever that number is, right? That's your skin. You complete the degree, I'll pay it off. You don't complete the degree, figure it the fuck out. Because right. I think that I just saw too many kids who I had a roommate when I was doing my undergrad down in Florida, and not Florida State. When I was doing, because you just mentioned it, when I was doing my undergrad down in Florida, I had a roommate. The roommate came from a very wealthy family, but the roommate was a complete fucking academic degenerate. He was there because his dad wanted to, it was like this last ditched. Now I didn't know that until I was initially, but this was his dad's last ditch effort for him. His dad had money, right? And so the kid had zero skin in the game, and it showed. It showed because at the end of the day, he didn't finish. He dropped out of the classes and he went back home midway through the semester, right? Left me paying for the apartment we were in together by myself, by the way. I woke up and he was gone. Not, hey, I'm leaving. Woke up and was gone. Fucking crazy. So I called the dad, and that's when I realized what was happening. Because the dad was I'm like, hey, he's like, I'm sorry. I have bailed him out too much. This was his last chance. I hate to do this to you, but I can't cover his debt. Right. Yeah. Right. So I was at that point, I'm like, what the fuck? Right. But that's the result partially of no skin in the game. Right. Easy for you to walk away. You dad had paid for the semester. You didn't have anything. You weren't risking having to pay back. The school wasn't cheap. And so you weren't risking having to pay back 20, 30,000 for that, your portion of it. I think that's one of the models. I really do. I think one of the models is whether your plan is to absorb this or not, you need to have your kids feel like there's skin in the game, and much better to do that with a third party, right? Here's your loan. It's with them. It's right. Then saying, hey, you're going to have to pay me back. That's a recipe for disaster, right? With the relationship, right? The third party thing's the best thing going, right? Because now it's this thing, right? My parents' names weren't on those student loans. My name was on the student loan. So I was responsible for them. I had to pay them back. If it didn't go on their credit, if I missed the payment, it went on mine, right? So yeah, I'm a big believer in how to navigate this is going to differ from parent to parent because situations will differ. But those parents that have the capacity to give the education, that's great. But
are we better off as parents and this goes with everything we've talked about, a million different things like this, where it's you need to build some sort of challenge into your and for your kid that they need to be able to accept and live up to, right? You have, in order to build resilient kids that have skills, kids that have abilities, kids that can kind of take on the world. You have to build it in somehow, right? And by giving them this financial parachute of just like, you're setting your kid up for maybe, there are obvious examples where this is not true. The kid goes on to be super successful and is fine, but I think that we're probably better off. As you said, we've been using the word skin in the game. In whatever we're doing, giving them some sort of challenge where they're not just handed something, they need to earn it.
Yeah. I think in every aspect of our life with our kids, giving them, putting some ownership of responsibility on them is crucial. And there's very rarely where that's a bad way to go.
Right.
Right. And this is one of them. And we can be the hero. And we can do something amazing for our kids and give them this education. Like, that's amazing. And we can do that. But there's a way to do it where they feel some ownership a little more ownership for the outcome. We can't expect an 18-year-old child to understand what we understand at our age.
Right.
And this potentially, in most cases, would be their first experience with ownership of significant debt. And that can be heavy. And what a great way to kind of put that, because if you don't do that, if you expect them to conceptualize the investment you just made without having them put some ownership to it, they're not going to. It's like the podcast we did of how well do our kids, what does it mean we can't afford that, right?
Yeah.
Like, they have no fucking idea what in most cases, what the household balance sheet looks like, even with a family who's making significant money. The balance sheet is usually like, yeah, we make a ton of money, but we live in $1 million house. What does that cost every month, right? So at the end of the day, they're not, if you expect them to just empathetically grasp what you did for them, you're going to set yourself up for disappointment and potentially like some significant tension between you and your child.
Or how about just the kid not having the opportunity to grow and learn the way that they should?
Yeah.
Because of having this. Because if you just have this golden parachute, right?
Right.
Obviously, you're going to jump out of the plane because it's going to...
You can drop out.
Are you going to jump out of that plane if you're not sure if you got the parachute or not?
You can drop out. It's not a horrible thing if you drop out. If you hate it that much, you got this experience. Do you hate it enough to pay back $40,000?
Right.
Yes, I do. Well, then go for it. Go for it. Then I trust you made that decision thoughtfully, as opposed to my roommate who made that decision because, got a little lazy, right? There was nothing there.
I'm going to flip the script on you, Miss LaFauci.
Flip the script. You got a couple minutes left, so flip it quick.
I think we got more than a couple minutes.
All right, fair enough.
But I'm going to flip it up. I'm going to flip it because I think that it's not the same era that our parents grew up in. Is there, because we've talked about this a little bit with some different aspects of parenting, are we the best people we can be, and are we living the fulfilling life that we are going to live if everything we do is for our kids? And the reason why I bring that up is like, are we burdening ourselves with the future of our family? Or are we better off making sure that we're taken care of personally? So for example, a lot of parents don't go on vacations. They live a very meager existence just so they can send their kids to college.
Or even private school and high school, like stuff like that. Yeah.
Or just paying for expensive sports programs. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or getting them a PlayStation, right? Mm-hmm. Is that the best way of looking at it? Is that the best thing to do as a parent? Or are we, now that it's the 2020s, are we better off keeping more of that for ourselves and keeping our lives, living a more satisfied life for ourselves versus just giving all of our money to our kids? And
I think that pendulum. And
is that selfish?
No, I think the pendulum has gone past the equilibrium point where we are doing too much for our kids, and it will come. I think it needs to and will come back. I think divorce rates would go down if we spent a little more time on us and our relationship.
Right.
Right. If like those sort of things. And that's a function of, the kids get everything. And then we have nothing left.
We keep everything. We have nothing. We give everything to our kids.
We have nothing left for each
ourselves.
other. Right. That, that kind of stuff. Like, and that's a different conversation, obviously.
Well, no, but it fits into this because like, okay, are we saving all of our money up for our kids? Because are we not going on this vacation? Or are we not making this decision? Because if we do this, then we won't have more money in the college fund, and college is going to be $8,000 a year, and like we need to put this money aside, otherwise our kid's not going to be able to go. Are we better off just taking that burden completely off and saying, you know what, the kid's going to freaking, when he gets to 18, he's going to have to freaking figure it out.
Oh yeah, listen, the system is doing its best to trap you.
Yeah.
Hey, dump all this money into this college plan when your kid's at 2. Right. When your kid's 2 years old, tax-free, you're going to send them to college. Am I really? Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think, on our next podcast, we will be discussing the balance of what you give to your kids versus yourself. Because this fits into that, but I think it's its own thing, right?
Right.
It's its own, healthy evaluation of if you are looking at it and saying, I'm giving every last dollar to this thing, and, maybe that you get joy from that, right? And
I think a lot of parents do.
And if you get joy from it, is it bad? Probably not.
No.
Probably not. Maybe you're content, with the sacrifice you're making to do that. I think we all are sacrificing on some level for our children.
Oh, of course.
And even in the wealthiest of situations, we sacrifice time or whatever it might be. And, but the balance of that is a little out of whack right now. I agree with your statement.
I don't know if I made a statement.
You kind of did, because you brought up the fact that these things are existing right now, where we are overly, or we're focusing so much on this preparation and setting it and doing the thing of, putting everything for our kids' benefits. And that is happening at a very high level. So I do believe that pendulum's a little far.
Right. I think that there needs to be a balance. And I think that like the cost explosion of this educational process is should make people reevaluate more than they are. And the cost benefit analysis of going to college. So it's like you got both things. You've got this idea that maybe college isn't worth it. Maybe the kid should be considering other things. And therefore, should I then be freaking destroying is the wrong way of looking at it. Maybe not living my best life as an individual.
You ruined my life.
Well, no, not living my best life as an individual because of this freaking future thing that may or may not be the best thing to do in anyway.
Right.
Are they better off just coming? Are your kids better off if you are not going to be able to fully fund? Because primarily, most of our audience is not going to be able to fully fund their kids' college. There's going to be few that can, but most people are going to be somewhere in the middle. Are we just better off just no? We get to that point. Now we make a decision. Like if I have a little bit saved up and it helps you get over a little bit of a hump, then that's cool. Or is it better off starting from ground zero and it's like, okay, now you really have a decision to make. Do you go to college? Do you go to community college? Do you go to a cheaper school? Do you work hard to get a scholarship? Like all these things that you're going to have to do if I just take that out of the equation. Can I take that? I'm not going to pay for your education. I don't know if it's worth it. So I'm not going to save for it. I'm not going to do anything for it.
And I think based on our previous conversation, that you wouldn't be wrong in saying that what's happening right now is not worth it.
Right.
You wouldn't, I'd be hard pressed to say you're 100% wrong. Right. You wouldn't be wrong to say, hey, those middle tier colleges that don't really have the name recognition of a Ivy League school or anything like that, but are still 60,000. They might not be a smart choice for you, right? So, you would not be wrong in saying that. So, forcing saying I'm taking the stand because I think this is how you should approach it too.
Right.
You should have ownership for it and know that I'm not willing to dish out that kind of money for what you're getting in return.
And then maybe killing two birds with one stone, where you now live a more fulfilled married life or a more fulfilled life while you're living, while your kids are growing up.
More experience for them, maybe. I mean,
instead of just saying,
that
you know
rabbit
what,
hole
we
is
got to put
deep.
the money away.
That rabbit
We
hole
got to
is
put that
deep.
money away, or those kids are not going to be able to
Deep.
afford college.
That's a deep rabbit hole.
Either way, I think we're advocating for more thought into it, but also
More thought.
some sort of skin in the game.
And absolutely.
Some sort of skin in the game. We basically said you shouldn't just pay for your kids to go to college.
I
think we
agree.
basically just said that.
I agree. Your
No matter
kids
whether
should
you have
own,
the means
your
or
kids
not.
should own that decision to some extent for the benefit of their investment in the process.
And if you have a younger child right now, you have to seriously think about the future and think, how important is it going to be
right.
that I have, $400,000 saved up for my kids' education? Is that, or $800,000 if I've got two kids?
So much better in a
$120,000
in a Bugatti sitting in my driveway.
Yeah.
Zoom. Good stuff.
Be selfish.
Yeah, great conversation. All right, I love it. I'm Brian LaFauci.
Patrick Marino.
Spend your college money. Until next time.
Thank you.